back to the Pretoria High Court now, which has just delivered its judgment in the urgent application filed by Thabo and Dr. Nandipha Magudumana over that documentary. Now, here's Chriselda Lewis watching developments on that front. So, Chriselda, the judge also choosing to first deal with many elements. Let's listen in.
Say anything at this point in time. Let me rather go consult first.
Yes. The cost order, quite hefty. Do you think that was unfair or fair on the judge's part?
Look, the courts at the end of the day, we just go with what the court has decided. But yes, there are heavy costs, especially when you look at the fact that the client is based in Concert. So it's not an easy type of a consultation to do. There are processes that one needs to follow. Even if you could perhaps maybe ask for whatever, you can't even consult after hours. It's near impossible. So hence I'm saying that our situation are really different. It's not that the client is in Luakop, the client is in Concert and under strict correctional services processes and procedures. So it's not really that easy.
Ms. Reid, apologies there. Let's just first get your reaction to the matter being struck off the roll on behalf of your client.
Yes, it's, like we've said that it's not an easy one. Yes, it has been struck off the roll, but we really tried by all means to meet the agency, and our circumstances are different. And at the end of the day, it's not a matter of when you are told that you can maybe go to court. Our conversations with the respondents was never about go to court. Yes, we are the ones that said let's try and negotiate before we go to court, because we didn't want to waste the court's time. And in their conversation, it was never that fact that it basically what they were saying was that you don't have a case. You have been ill-advised. And when you get that information, you have to go and consult. And you are threatened with costs. So it was basically a difficult one to maneuver, because on one part, you are told that you can't go to court, and then on the other, you have to take instruction. And when a client wants their voice and their case to be heard, what else can you do?
We heard in the matter yesterday, Dinana, that there seems to have, as you say, have been ill-advising to Dr. Nandipha Magudumana. Who ill-advised her, and what happened there from her legal team?
Look, I can't really talk much about my colleagues. I got in when the contract was already done. But from the papers and the consultations that I had was that there has been commercial arrangements between Storyscope and Mrs. Magudumana, and a license agreement as well, which was entered into. So the two are not in sync. So, and that the reason why she was insisting on the agency and to stop the production, because there are prior commercial arrangements, which Storyscope is also not disputing. They're in the papers. Dr. Magudumana was entitled to give a view or input on the production. It is there.
Ms. Reid, we heard in court yesterday, and I raised this because it's something that we heard in court, the suggestion by Advocate Thembeka Ncurayi-Tobi speaking about the fact that Mrs. Magudumana was paid for this a commercial transaction. Are you able to tell us how much she was paid?
Okay, there was never payment directly to Dr. Magudumana. If there's any payment, it was basically towards it was used for the legal fees from the papers that I looked at, and it was claimed to be for, I think, the archives or whatever. Yes, and I'm a bit hesitant to mention the figures at this point in time because there's confidentiality that is signed, but I think if you head in our arguments, probably you'll be able to also find the figures, but I can't really say that myself.
There was also demands given that her father not be part of the documentary, and a big part of this as well coming from Mr. Bester's side is that this may somehow impact the trial. Is there anything that he says that could perhaps be furthermore incriminating?
I think from our side, firstly, yes, Dr. Magudumana was not aware that her father was participating in the documentary. And when we raised it in January of this year, they claimed that, or they didn't even claim, they specifically stated that it is factually incorrect. And they assured Ms. Magudumana that there is no such. And hence, we stopped, or Mr. Mutlung at the time didn't do anything because these are your partners. So you have to trust whatever that they are saying. And then on the 19th now, this documentary is coming out with the voice of your father, which then confirms the risk that was raised in Jan, which is what we're trying, or Mr. Mutlung was trying to avoid as early as Jan, but it was ignored and denied by Storyscope. Yeah.
Right, Tinana Reid, who represents, of course, Dr. Nandipha Magudumana, and in just about a moment, we're going to speak to Courage Morero, who is the lawyer who's representing Thabo Bester. We'll get just some comments from her in just about a moment, and hear what her remarks would be relating to the judgment, of course, of striking the urgent matter off the court roll for lack of urgency. We'll speak on other matters relating to exactly. In fact, let me bring in Courage Morero, who is the attorney representing Mr. Thabo Bester. Let's get your reaction, first of all, Courage, to the matter being struck off the roll.
We are disappointed that the matter was dismissed. As you heard the judge, our matter was dismissed on the basis that the court finds that our client has substantial redress that's available to him that he can bring at a later stage, and that prior restraint in this event is not the only adequate redress available to him. Yeah. So we are extremely disappointed because obviously we view that quite differently. We do not believe that bringing damages at a later stage will substantially restore the harm that is being done to our client. But, you know, you come to court, you argue a case. At the end of the day, it's up to the bench what they find.
And what's next for your clients? I mean, he's been having these blows quite a bit in the courts. We saw it with Showmax. We've seen it now with Netflix. You know, there could be more productions that are being produced. What's next for him?
Yeah, that is exactly the problem that we have, that with the court not granting our client the right to protect himself until this trial in Bloemfontein is finished, then there'll just be more people coming. You know, I expressed yesterday, because I was also asked about the issue of Showmax, that are we now saying that if somebody is violated and the person who violates them gets away with it, then the next person should also be allowed to get away with it, and the client is just supposed to fold his hands? I do not believe that my client is the type of person who would ever just sit back and fold his hands and allow people to continue maligning him. So should anything of this nature happen again, I'm not saying we will be instructed, nor am I saying it will happen, but I mean, should it happen, I suspect that he will still continue want to fight to protect himself.
Sorry, Attorney Morero. Yesterday we heard Attorney Moafrika say that it is not necessarily that Bester escaped from prison. Are you confident that you'll be able to prove that indeed he did not escape come November?
Okay, I do believe what Advocate Maila was saying is, and this is true, right? I mean, it's not a fabrication. There are many ways to depart from a place. You know, yes, the place in question here is prison, but the argument is that is precisely what is before the court. The court needs to determine, A, did Thabo Bester leave prison? B, how did he leave prison, right? It's not a foregone conclusion. So the idea that he escaped, that's a conviction on his part. And we're saying we cannot be allowed to make pronouncements on issues that are before a court, that are yet to be tested, where evidence is yet to be led, where even a plea is yet to be entered, right? So basically, Advocate Maila was merely stating what is a fact. There are many ways to depart from a place. You don't necessarily always have to go out running. I mean, to put it in simpler terms. Yeah.
And you speak about a plea. Is that something you're considering?
No. Remember, when I say a plea hasn't been entered, that's the process of the trial. They accuse you and then you enter a plea. So the charges are there. We're still doing pre-trial things, case management. So we haven't even gotten to a state where we actually hear what the accused are pleading, whether they're pleading guilty or innocent. We don't know yet. No pleas have been entered as to the record. But already there's a foregone conclusion in the public that, of course, this man escaped, as though there's only one way to depart from a place, and that's by running away.
Advocate Nandipha made a lot of reference to the SCA judgment, where a lot of different facts were laid out within there, and he relied on that to say that a lot of the allegations are already out in the public eye. But Advocate Nandipha didn't really respond to that, and I think, to me, it was the crux of why I think the judge found in the way that she did that it's already in the public eye. So I just wanted to see if you had any response to the fact that one of the highest courts in the country is already stating some of these things as, I'll use the quote, as a foregone conclusion.
And that is exactly the problem that we have. So remember that SCA matter, my client was not even part of that application. That was done on behalf of Dr. Magudumana. He was not even part of the proceedings. But this statement was made. So we sit here where if an honorable court can make such a pronouncement, what then about our lay citizens who are sitting on the couch watching Netflix or watching the news? Then it would follow. Then they would also be, inclined to make such foregone conclusions as well. So that is why we brought this application here. It's not about what are you afraid of that the people will say, because remember, whoever is participating in the documentary, whatever they're saying, our client still has the right to institute whatever applications for damages or actions for damages that he may see fit at the time. But we haven't actually had sight of the documentary. So the issue we're trying to avoid was a further forward into this wildfire, as Advocate Maila had explained it yesterday, that's already going on, that our client is being seen as somebody who escaped from prison. And that hasn't actually even been proven in court. His side of the story hasn't even been heard. And he wants to tell his side of the story, mind you. He's very eager to have his side of the story told. But he hasn't had that opportunity, and not for lack of trying, because the trial hasn't come to that point yet where we can even hear from him. Yeah.
Courage Morero, who is the attorney representing Thabo Bester, reacting to that urgent application being struck off the roll. That of Dr. Nandipha Magudumana has also been struck off the roll. So this essentially means that the Netflix documentary is able to go ahead. Certainly has been much anticipation waiting for that, in light of some of the snippets that we've heard inside court relating to some of the sentiments that have been shared inside court, including the fact that Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's father, who was a co-accused in a criminal matter, has shared some sentiments there. Justice Edwin Cameron, and we also understand a celebrity who is also part of that documentary. I will certainly get to know much more of what is in it once it begins.
And it was quite interesting, Chriselda, to listen to the judge as she was delivering that judgment there, going through the many layers which she was just peeling off as she was delivering that judgment there. She said that no reasonable court would be swayed a certain way, but just by merely watching a documentary, but a court would be swayed by the evidence before dealing with that element and aspect of urgency. I'm wondering now, what does this mean now for Bester and Magudumana going forward, given that there was another failed attempt with Showmax just before this?
Yeah, in fact, from the judgment, you would have heard a judge say that the urgency is self-created, and basically that the applications had not complied, and basically placed, undue pressure on the parties, which was unreasonable. And the reason why the judge had mentioned that aspect pertained to the aspect where papers had been submitted late. You also heard yesterday Advocate Thabo Bester, who's representing Netflix, talking about papers that had not been filed on time, which exerted due pressure on the opponents to get this matter off. And basically, talking about the fact that the application for Dr. Magudumana, was set out a day before the documentary, and they knew it had been aired 2 weeks prior to the trailer being out. So even if there'd been consultations, which we heard from her lawyers, there'd been difficulties in terms of consultations with her, the court basically found that that should not have been an excuse. They knew that this documentary was coming and basically should have brought this application much earlier than that. So basically saying that the urgency itself was self-created.
Right, that's our very own Chriselda Lewis working that story for us. Thanks so much for that update.